Reset. All right, we are very, very lucky to have with us today a brave voice out of Canada, Dallas Brodie, a member of Vancouver's Legislative Assembly, someone who has broken stereotypes, spoken out forcefully against anti-Semitism. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Rabbi.
So, first of all, you have taken on Samidoun and the pro-Hamas movement in Canada in ways that, unfortunately, the federal Canadian government hasn't. Can you please tell us about those efforts and how they've been coming along?
Yes. So for me, I was elected to the Legislative Assembly in British Columbia last fall, and since I've been there, we all know that there's an explosion of anti-Semitism in Canada. This is without question. And I also, just my background, I do not see this as a Jewish issue. I see it as a societal issue that is a sign of a deep sickness that's developing in this country. And so I have asked and written to the Attorney General of British Columbia uh, several times, and I have asked why prosecutions aren't being laid against Charlotte Kate, Samidoun, and there are other people here also spreading hate. We don't need to go into all of them today, but I at one point got so frustrated that on X I said, "Look, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it." And anybody can lay a private prosecution under the Criminal Code of Canada. And so we waited and gave Ms. Sharma, Nikki Sharma is the Attorney General of British Columbia. We gave her time to do this and nothing was happening. So we said, okay, it's been a few months. The last time we asked, and so let's get going. Let's do it. And so we drafted it's called an information with a capital I. That's the name of the document you file. And we went through we used the terrorism sections of the Criminal Code of Canada as opposed to the hate speech and incitement to violence sections. And we went through the different crimes that are listed in the criminal code, and then put underneath each charge a brief description of the evidence we have to support each claim or each charge that we're recommending. And so we got an appointment with the registrar at the criminal courthouse, at the provincial courthouse in Vancouver. And we went down there and went in and laid those charges on the 20th. Was it the 20th? Yeah, I think it was the 20th. Wednesday, the 20th of August.
Oh. So you clearly have a very good understanding of the Canadian legal system. You knew who to contact, the Attorney General, etc. Let me ask you a question many people have when they see what's gone on in Ontario, specifically in Toronto, where there are mobs roaming Jewish neighborhoods, attacking Jewish schools, synagogues. The Attorney General, Doug Downey, is under everyone's radar somehow. Why are there no prosecutions, in places like Montreal, like Toronto? What's going on in terms of the people who are supposed to enforce the law? And like you say, people who are supposed to have prosecutions in place.
Well, this is the whole question. Uh, I shouldn't have to do this. Uh, this is clearly a dangerous situation that's getting more and more dangerous by the day here. It's obvious. Things are escalating, it's getting worse. The question you've just asked me is the question of the century. I don't know why these attorney generals don't do something about this. All I can say is that since I'm new to politics, I'm watching and seeing how people can make big promises when they're running. And I'm finding that a lot of people get into these positions of power and then they lose their nerve. They get worried about vote counts and their main focus becomes reelection. And I hate to say this, but it may just be a cynical political calculation that they are worried about losing a voting base. I can't believe that's true because that should not be what is going on. But it I can't, it's inexplicable to me. I've said this online and in interviews I've given. It's inexplicable that people can say and do these things and charges are not laid. If you are attacking any other group, saying these vile things, calling for, death and killing and glorifying terrorists, the whole nine yards. You would, if I did this, I'd probably be arrested, handcuffed, and perp walked all around the city as many times as they possibly could to show me. And I don't know why we're letting this go on. It's confounding.
Wow, I mean, just today there was horrible news out of Ottawa where a Jewish woman was stabbed in a local supermarket while shopping in a kosher aisle. Still, police are investigating it. I guess what's your message to Canadian Jews who are just shocked and wondering what the future might hold for them? Because they look around and it's okay, they'll see the mobs roaming around, that's one thing, but to see the silence from broader society, from attorney generals, what's your message to Canadian Jews who are wondering about their future?
Well, I know some very high level and high profile Jewish people have actually left Vancouver on purpose, and it's really sad. People are very scared. I mean, it is people are very worried. Jewish people, I get phone calls from constituents, some of them in tears. This is from months ago saying, why isn't anybody doing something? I mean, particularly when Charlotte Cates and her Samidoun supporters were down at the Vancouver Art Gallery, just burning flags, screaming death, death to Canada, death to the United States, death to Israel, burning the flags. I know someone who walked by and had a frozen water bottle chucked at him just as he was walking by, and just by these things flying at people. And this constituent phoned me, and she was crying. She's Jewish. She said, I actually feel terrified, Dallas. And I said, I know, I actually do too. So all I can say to people is, I realize it's scary times. I know that. But I also say, please don't think that letters to your attorney general are a waste of time. The public pressure has to be continued, and it can't just be Jewish people. Everybody needs to do this, but to the Jewish community in particular, please don't feel that it's futile to try and push back. Politicians are impacted by people coming to see them, and they need to be given the push sometimes to do the right thing. It shouldn't be like this, but to continue keeping the pressure on and speaking out against it, it's not a waste of time. We have to keep trying because we're being assailed with a massive PR campaign that is gigantic, and it's hard to fight back against, and it's discouraging. But the letters, the phoning, there's also the fact that I've laid a private prosecution. Yes, I'm a politician. Yes, I'm a retired lawyer, but you don't have to be either of those to do it. I'm actually hoping that perhaps this wasn't my original intent, but maybe now that I've done this, other people will say, hey, I'm going to lay a private prosecution in my city. I'm going to go down to the courthouse, get the forms, and do this. Anybody can do it. It's in the code. It's available.
Just so I make that clear, because that's a very practical tip and that's important. So let's say someone's in Toronto and there are people standing outside their synagogue protesting, they're being harassed. There are people standing outside kosher restaurants, outside Jewish events. You can just go down to the office of the Attorney General and fill out paperwork for a prosecution.
Actually, what you would do is it's not the Office of the Attorney General. You'd go to in British Columbia, it's the Provincial Court of BC that handles criminal matters. There are different courts in Ontario. I don't know if they call it the provincial court there, but they just need to figure out which one is the court that handles criminal matters. And you go in, you have to do the work in advance. So it's called a Form 2. The Form 2 is available. You can get it either online or go to the courthouse and get one. And then we took ours and we typed it, and ours is about 5 pages long. I do, but we're listing the evidence that the basics of evidence that we were relying on. So if there was something outside, say a synagogue, then the evidence that you're relying on to lay these charges would have to be just sort of briefly summarized on this page. And then we prepared ours in advance, stapled it all together, and we told the registry in advance that we would be coming down, because I was also holding a press conference that day so that they were ready, and also so that security could be there so that I wouldn't be attacked or something. And then they knew that we were coming, and we went up and we sat with a justice of the peace who sat with me in a room with my assistant, who came with me, and she went through the forms she looked through them and she goes, okay, it all looks really good. And what I'm going to do now is take it in the sense that it's orderly and it's done properly. And then not validating or invalidating the claims. I didn't mean to say that, but she was saying it looks in order. And so she said to us, you will get a phone call in 60 days. And in that phone call, you will be given a time and place where you will be uh, going before a judge who will be assigned to look at this private prosecution, and a Crown Counsel, a Crown prosecutor who will be there with me. And it will be just the three of us in a room. And then that's called a process hearing, apparently. And then at that process hearing, my understanding is the judge will just say, no way, not doing it. Or he can issue a process right there for either a subpoena or a summons for Ms. Cates, or an arrest warrant. And so at this point, thankfully, it looks like we don't need the Attorney General's approval to go ahead in advance of that hearing. Now, at that hearing, I am probably going to be having a lawyer represent me who's fluent in these things and will make my argument for me. I've thought about doing it myself, but we're just weighing that right now, whether I make my own argument or get someone who's perhaps even done this before. It's not that common. It's not common.
I mean, it resonates strongly because, especially in Toronto, it's really been one individual who was leading the charge in harassing and targeting the Jewish community, standing outside synagogues. And it's just amazing to see how much chaos one person can do. I mean, they can taint an entire country. And so, I would recommend that they also take a similar path. If I understand correctly, you yourself are not Jewish.
No, I'm not. I'm Christian.
And yet you are speaking out on this issue very forcefully, which is a breath of fresh air to many Jewish Canadians who feel abandoned by the Canadian, public who's not Jewish, saying, "Look, the whole idea of being citizens in the same country is that we speak up for one another, and yet very few are speaking out." Why do you think so few are speaking out? What do you say, I guess, to the shock of Canadian Jews feeling like they have no allies?
I think it's the bystander effect. That famous case of Kitty Genovese, who is a woman who was murdered somewhere in the United States back in the
It was
60s,
in Queens, New York.
Queens, New York. The bystander effect, I think everybody thinks someone else is going to do it. And theoretically, someone else should be doing this. It should be our elected officials, our attorney general, our crown prosecutors. Oh, and I might add, Charlotte Cates was charged. She was arrested last year, charged by the Vancouver Police Department. Charges were recommended, and they've been sitting there ever since.
Wow.
So that's a piece that I forgot. That's an important piece of this story. They've been sitting there.
Is,
So why have people, I think, first of all, it's the bystander effect. I also think that, unfortunately, and that people say, oh, this isn't my issue. I don't need to worry about that. That's ridiculous. As you and I both know, this is about our whole society. It's not just about one group. And an attack on Jews is an attack on all of us. And I've been quite involved in advocacy on this file for over 2 decades. I worked in journalism back in late 90s, early 2000s. I took a break from law. And back then I saw what was, there's a very big double standard going on, and I didn't really understand it. So I started really digging into the whole story about the Middle East, and I learned a lot. And I went to Israel and I learned, I saw Israel, and went on like a mission to go there. And I went on the March of the Living in Poland, and I educated myself about this. I think it had always been something that was shocking to me, even as a child, seeing the images of the Holocaust growing up. So like, it's not like, I mean, I've always cared about this, but I cared even more once I started understanding it more and more deeply. So I'm happy that I'm able to do something concrete about this. I truly believe that this is not a Jewish issue. This is a Western, this is our country issue. And if we allow this to get out of hand, I don't think there's any way of getting it under control again.
Wow. Actually, it's interesting. My family came to Vancouver in 1952,
Mm.
and they came as stateless refugees from Shanghai. There were many Jews in Shanghai and China, and they came to Canada. They were stateless because their German citizenship was taken, and then after 1949, they didn't have any claim to be part of China, so they were purged from there. They were stateless. They came to Vancouver, and they were embraced. And they gave back. My grandmother was a teacher for many decades on the island, just giving and giving. Every hungry child in the neighborhood knew he could eat in her home, and everyone was welcome. And I think to my family, like I said, a lot of the shock is that the people you grow up with and are your neighbors, your friends, your students, whatever it is, you think they're going to speak out, but then no one speaks out. And so it's like you're saying, there's a bystander effect. What do you think can be done to wake Canadians up and say, look, it doesn't matter what your views are on the Middle East, your Jewish neighbors are leaving.
That's a super important point because I'm trying to say I'm not here to litigate Middle East politics. I'm a small player in the world scene. I am here saying that what I see in in the city I grew up in. I'm a fifth generation Vancouverite. I've never seen anything like this ever. Um, People were living peacefully here. This is, I don't think the Jewish community's ever been assailed like this in Vancouver. Um, I've had good friends growing up who were just, it was just like really a peaceful coexistence. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
Jewish
very.
people say it wasn't that. I don't know. I wasn't really aware of anti-Semitism. I hadn't heard a lot about it until I went away to university in the States and I started learning in the early 80s. Like I was like, wow, I've never really heard about this before. And now I'm here and I'm just trying to do my part to say our city has to remain safe. And it's very sad for me to hear people are actually thinking about, like, one major figure in the Vancouver Jewish community has left and relocated to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he did a big ex post about his whole family leaving. This is a
Okay.
man he has a very wonderful family, and they've
Yeah.
left because they don't feel safe. And people are leaving to move to Israel, and uh, uh, it's incredible.
Yeah, it
I
is,
don't know.
and yeah, I can tell you just in a personal way. I mean, I know people who've been in Canada also many, many, years, generations, and they're looking at what's going on and they're saying there is no way this is getting better. Like you said, it's like if it once it gets out of control, it can get out of control.
And the other thing is, I think a lot of people don't act because they also perceive the Jewish community to be incredibly powerful and
Mm.
so well connected and learned, and well, they should be able to handle this. Like I think that there's that too. Like, well, they're a strong community, and but what I've
I
learned
mean,
is
in
that
Canada, Jews are like just percentage wise are so small. They're like
I know
less than 1%.
really, really small. I think, but I also know that I believe this to be true, that a lot of Jews are fatigued. It's tiring to
Yeah.
always be fighting, always be being trying to say no, don't say that. Like, you know, fighting when you've it's exhausting
It
and
is.
people
Yeah.
people are burned out and they need other people to step forward. I wish more Christians would step forward. I
Yeah.
know that there are some groups, but some of the big churches are not helpful. And
Hmm.
we know,
Yeah.
come on now. Uh, this is spreading and it's not healthy. Um, and there are political parties in Canada that openly pass resolutions that are anti-Israel. I mean,
Yeah.
they're talking about it.
Mind-boggling, absolutely mind-boggling. Now, on the case of Charlotte Cates, she not only cheered there for Hamas, but she also actually picked up, traveled to the Middle East, went to Lebanon, and attended the funeral of a not just a terrorist, but a narco chief, the largest trafficker of illegal drugs in the world, Hassan Nasrallah from Hezbollah, who they send Captagon and other drugs to South America all around the world, and she attended his funeral, the and with no shame. Is that something that has a legal consequence, or is it only just morally reprehensible?
I'd have to look at the information again, how we dealt with that part, but there is activity in support of terrorism. And I'm not sure if that fell into our information, but I'm aware of those things. I can actually, after this video, I can probably send you a copy of the information. You can look through it, so you can see what we flagged in the context of that. I'm certain it'll be brought up at the hearing. Uh, but, I'm under the understanding she's not welcome in Europe. Isn't that
Wow.
true? And
And to be not welcome in Europe and welcome in Canada, it's like
well,
everything has changed.
and Samidoun is a listed terrorist organization in Canada.
Hmm.
So doesn't it mean something if you're the co-founder and a director of that, that's,
You should,
you know,
yeah,
I,
you should be in
so
you should be in jail.
I come
Uh,
back to the inaction and the affiliation, all of this. I don't know why the government doesn't act on this. I can only chalk it up to fear, political expediency, um, uh, party control, because parties do control you. You
mhm.
get in there. I'm out, was expelled from my party earlier this year, and now I'm independent and I'm able to do things that are actually terrific. And I'm very happy that I'm able to take these actions. But I will say that parties close in on you once you get elected, and all the things you thought you would be able to do, you're very strictly controlled.
Wow.
So
That's for good and for bad. There's a politician in Canada who literally grew up with my family, like literally lived with my family. My grandmother fed her, and she joined the NDP. And I asked my family. I said, after October 7th, did she change? Did she speak out? So eventually, it turned out she did contact some people privately. But I'm like, if she was prosecuted for whatever religion she belongs to, we would all be speaking out in her support very publicly. But you just don't see that. Just another thing, my grandmother on Vancouver Island used to go with a bunch of retirees. There was a program in the Israeli army, Sarel. They would travel every summer to Israel to an IDF base, get all the IDF gear on, and they would pack medicine, fold parachutes, whatever it is. They would volunteer to help the IDF. Now there's this huge movement from the pro-Hamas crowd to start prosecuting Canadians who joined the IDF after October 7th. Is that something that you think is of concern? Do you think the numbers are meaningful? Do you think the efforts are going to be fruitful?
I'm not too aware of that so much right now, so I don't really feel like I can't say on that. I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, I have to do a bit more research on that one
Mhm.
and find out what what the indicators are for that going forward or the prospects for that. Um, hmm, interesting.
And I guess like if you can have a pitch and a message, two messages if I can ask you now. First of all, one pitch and message to Canadian Jews who are sort of on the fence, looking around, not sure what's going on. And then if it's okay, then a message to non-Jewish Canadians who are saying, okay, I'm just gonna sit this one out. It's like too controversial. I'm gonna stay this one out. What are your messages to those two groups?
I guess to the Jews who are sitting on the fence and wondering how to handle all of this, because I know it's stressful. You've got your friend groups, and a lot of this comes down to your personal friend groups, right? It's like everything. The big problem is write down in the personal. Write down my best friend is on this side. I don't want to lose my friendship. I'm afraid to speak. I think we all have to start finding our courage and risk being unpopular at the dinner party or whatever it is and say, look, you guys, this is getting out of control and it's getting dangerous for us. And you can disagree with Israel's position on this or that, but here at home, you guys, we're in danger now and we need to pressure, we need to protect ourselves and we can't all be in division here and not be afraid of how it will affect our social groups, how we're perceived in our families. It does take guts because maybe some of you have been a long-standing family that's always supported the NDP, and if you break rank, you're going to be losing friends, and that's painful. But I would encourage people to just do it anyway. risk the unpopularity and move forward and get in defense of yourselves. And then for the Canadians the ones who are sitting this out, is that the one? I would say to them, okay, it's them today, it's going to be us tomorrow. And this is not going to stop. And, you know, Christians are under fire too. We know that.
Yeah.
And this is why so many churches are afraid to speak out. It's already started.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to see. Um, and people get afraid for their own personal safety. But I would say to Canadians, you need to wake up and realize that this is the tip of the spear that's going on. This is the tip of the problem. And we need to fight this right now before it's too big to fight.
Yeah.
It's like anything I say, like homelessness in Canada or allowing encampments to grow. If you removed the first tent right away, it would probably not go much further. Keep removing it, keep removing it. But if you let two grow, then five, then 10, and now you've got 200 tents. Now you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
Okay. You could have resolved it by saying, no, we're not allowing this here. We have to find whatever the other answer would be, but stop it before it becomes so big that it's unmanageable and uncontrollable. And well, so that's what I would say is get on side, do something. And this position is not do it for the Jewish people, but also do it for all of our society. We don't want this to be a scary place to live. So, and I don't think a lot of people enjoy hearing people shrieking death to Canada.
Yeah. I mean, it's the
You,
same the same people who are speaking out against Canadian Jews are turning on Canada as well.
yeah, death to Canada. Well, what are you doing here then? Why do you want to be here if you hate it here?
Yeah.
Why do you want to do this here?
Yeah.
What I don't understand. Obviously, I don't. If you came here from another place, obviously you left for a reason. You've been welcomed here. Why would you do this? And for people who've lived here their whole lives, who have other agendas and why they're doing it,
Yeah.
I just think it's terrible. That's all I can say.
Wow. Dallas Brodie, a very, very brave voice, speaking out against hate, against anti-Semitism, taking on Samidoun, which was allowed to go unchecked for too long in Canada. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for speaking out. And we'll keep following up on your progress on taking on terrorism in Canada and confronting hate in Canada. Thank you so much for speaking out.
And thank you so much for interviewing me, Rabbi Poupko, and I appreciate it. And it's been a very pleasant interview. Thank you. And I'll keep fighting.